Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and a while ago we did a series on reels that were made in the 70s and 80s overseas, predominantly in Japan, but other Asian countries as well. And today I'm going to grab one of these, which is a conventional reel. Most of the ones that we had shown were spinning reels, and this one is a Kencor Model 840 drum reel. It says it's faster, stronger, and higher caster. So let's see how this runs. It's a nice reel. It spins freely, and the drags work in it, but I haven't seen it before, so I'm going to take it apart. I'll share that experience with you, and we'll see if there's anything I can do to tune this up, or just kind of leave it as it is. So these reels were kind of knockoffs. If you look at this, it's pretty much the same size as a Penn Senator 3.0, or the little bit larger than the Long Beach 65 Penn. The handle is a plastic handle, not a Bakelite handle, but boy, if it doesn't look like a pen. And surprisingly enough, the Penn reel wrench works on the handle screw. So surprise, surprise. So we're going to take this off, see what we got. And a couple of things that I always encourage folks to do who are watching the videos is, one, wear some protective gloves if you can, because you're not quite sure what you're going to find inside these reels from a lubricant standpoint and the like. And the other is take pictures along the way, because reels like this, a lot of times you can't find the schematics on. You certainly can't find the parts on it. And if you get lost along the way, there's maybe nothing you can do in terms of making this thing work again. So this is an interesting little cap with a ferrule on it. We saw how those things came apart. We've got the side plate screws, which go into cross post and seat. I did notice in this that this reel was probably taken apart before, because there's a screw, kind of hard to see, but there's a screw showing through the reel seat here. Maybe we can see it that way. That's wrong. That belongs in one of the posts, and there's usually two separate sizes for those screws. In this case, looks like somebody may have taken that side plate off and put the wrong screw back in place, but I'll show you that as I take these out. I like to take them out and lay them on the workbench in front of me here, and then just to make sure that I know that all of the screws are the same size, or if they are smaller, which they should be for the reel seat, at least if they're kind of following that Penn takeoff there, then know that the smaller ones came from particular locations, and you can put them back in that same location when you go to rebuild the reel. Yeah, see, that one's smaller, and this one should be smaller as well. The reel is stamped Made in Japan on the bottom. I'm guessing that the capacity on this is probably close to 300 yards of 20-pound monofilament line. It's a medium-size ocean reel, and I'm sure that it's got enough quality there that it'll help you land the bigger fish. And here's a problem here. This screw is kind of sitting. There we go. I think we may have been able to turn that. I'm just looking for a screwdriver that can help me drive that one along. It's always good to have a variety of screwdrivers in your on your workbench here, so that if you need some additional leverage, you can get it. But in this case, that screw kind of seems like it's shot. So let's just go over to the other side, pull that screw. That way we can get the side plate off. And looking underneath, it even looks like a Penn reel. It's got the same jack, 4 screws on the bridge plate there. And I'm not sure how much further I can go with that screw being what it is. I'm going to, I always get questions on this one, which is, what do you do for a frozen screw? One of the things you do is you hit it with the WD-40. And then what I like to do is grab a channel lock pliers like this, grab a kitchen scrubby. These are just pieces of them, but you've all seen them around for pots and pans. And before I go any further, I'm going to take those side plate screws that I took out, put them in my parts tray, and put the scrubby onto that post so that you're not going to damage it, and then you can work it backwards. And it seems like I got half a revolution out of it anyway, so that may have freed it up enough that I can go back in and grab it with the screwdriver now. We'll just see. There you go. There was just that one little turn there. So we got ourselves lucky. We didn't break a screw in the process. Sometimes that happens, and if you break the screw, you're probably stuck with a reel like this, because my guess is the parts are not generally available. So again, use a kitchen scrubby, channel lock, grab it that way so you don't mar the metal post, and you should be good to go. All right, let's continue to take this off. This looks very much like the Penn reel. Again, it's a knockoff, but it's a Kencor reel, but again, the eccentric looks the same, the eccentric spring the same, the jack the same, so why shouldn't the rest of it underneath look the same? Well, we'll find out. It does have the four screws below, and I'm going to guess that there's an anti-reverse dog in here that we got to watch out for, because I'm not sure how it's set. So I'm going to cup my hand against the back. Again, I haven't worked on one of these reels. This one was just one that I got in a bunch of reels that I bought, and thought it would be good to make a YouTube video out of this one, just to kind of show you what some of those reels were in the 70s and 80s. And because these were made in Japan, it doesn't mean that at the time that they were inferior, but what we showed in that other series was that the reels copied a lot of the designs that were prevalent at the time. And again, this one looks very much like a Penn 3.0. I just noticed as I cupped my hand that this spring came out, so that's the anti-reverse dog spring. So that's why you want to cup your hand there, just to make sure that you got it all. Here's your anti-reverse dog. Here's a bridge that looks almost identical to a Penn bridge, a little bit thicker gear sleeve, but other than that, it looks pretty much identical. And boy, you know, if I closed my eyes and you didn't tell me this was a Penn, I would think that that's exactly what I'm looking at here. My yoke, my jack, all of them pretty much are the same setup as the Penn. So let's just take that apart, even to the point where the screws that hold the yoke springs are indented into the side plate, just like a Penn. So if you're comfortable working on a Penn reel, then you're comfortable working on this one. So we're gonna grease this up. It worked fine before I took it apart. So we'll just put a little bit of blue grease. I use a Penn Precision Reel Grease for this. You can use any manufacturer's or aftermarket reel grease. Just make sure it's designed for fishing reels. I'm just going to clean up some of the parts here, and the parts look like quality parts. They appear to be brass, which is nice. It's what you would expect in a higher quality reel. And I'm not that familiar with Kencor, but I'm sure that it was probably priced moderately, not you know, bargain basement, not a total rip-off, if you will. But it looks like it's was probably a good competitor to Penn at the time, and I imagine that the folks who had them, who fished them, probably got their money's worth out of it. So just cleaned up the pinion gear, or spool gear rather. Just gonna put a little bit of grease on that. Checked all the teeth, they're all the way they should be. So I'm going to go back and reinstall this, and it reinstalls the same way that a Penn would. You just put the yoke back in and slip the jack over it, and that's the way you found it. Easy enough. The reel is very clean inside. There's no grease or oil or junk in there. A little bit of residue from some dried grease, so that's fine. They even use the same idea with the screws. For the most part, the screws have the partial threading on it so that the springs can ride up on that without getting snagged. Okay, over to the bridge. It looks identical to a Penn bridge. This one doesn't look like it's been used much at all. The drags just fall out, which is wonderful. They seem to be a regular fabric drag of the time. I'm going to just clean up some of the metal. It looks like it's got a little bit of residue on it, again probably from the dried grease. So my guess is that these things have been hasn't been serviced in a while, but it probably hasn't been fished in a while either. And these again, the drag washers on these are flexible, which is wonderful because I'm not quite sure where I would find the replacement drag washer these days. So took a chance here, and it looks like these things can be put back into service. And if they fail in the future, that'll be my quest, is to find out where I can go get that as a replacement drag. Okay, I use drag grease. I use Cal's Universal Drag Grease for the drags. Another reason why I have that protection on my hand, I like to work it into the drag washers. I like to put a little bit on each side. Now, I left the drag washer in there. I wasn't going to pry that one out, because if I pry it out and split it, then the reel's shot. So it looked like it was in okay condition, so I put the drag grease on the bottom of the first washer. Just wash that one up. Again, I'm using a little bit of steel wool just to clean off some of that. Some of it's just discoloration. It's not crud on there that's going to wear into the drag. It just looks like whatever the metal is that's oxidized, or the salt water's got to it. So there's not much going on with that. Just going to put a little bit on that one. This is the eared washer. It always belongs in the middle. The eared or keyed washer fits into the slots of the main gear. And if this seems like I know this reel, it's only because it's so close to a Penn that you can pretty much say, if you can work on a Penn, you can work on this one. So again, with my gloved hand, I work that in to make sure that I get a good coating. And the whole idea with the drag grease is just to keep that drag fresh. We're just going to again smooth that one up, and it's smooth on both sides now. So we'll put that last one in here, and then we're kind of ready to reinstall this thing. And this is the only trick that I don't know at the moment. We're going to just kind of brave this one, and I think we'll get it right. But I didn't see that spring come out, but I'm guessing that it hooks onto the back of the dog here and sits in the shaft there. So we're going to go ahead and do it the same way that you would do it with a pen. We're going to push down on the yoke and insert that, turn it halfway. I'm going to grab one of the screws, set the dog. I'm going to keep that point up, put it in what I believe is upside down. We'll find out. Keep that point the other way. And now I believe that that spring is going to go in there. So this is the other reason why I use that parts bucket, because if you do, you know where to look for your pieces and parts when you take them out. And something like a spring can get lost pretty easily, so if you put them into the parts tray, you generally don't have a problem finding it. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and grab that spring. And it looks like maybe you want to put that spring on before you put the dog in. So let's go grab that off. Let's see if we can't hook that into the spring. If this video doesn't seem as smooth as some of the others, it's because it's a learning experience for all of us. Here we go. I think we got that. And these are springs. They will shoot, so you have to be careful when you're working with them. Otherwise, it's going to wind up in outer space. Alright, I do believe we pretty much have that spring set now, and we can complete the rotation. And we should be able to what happened, we got this just working with the dog, trying to make sure that I can get this dog inside here. Okay, got the dog in. I'm going to go tighten that down just a grab until we can get the other one set now. So this engineering is pretty good. I'm sure if you owned a reel, it would do you well fishing. And there would be no shame in taking this one on a boat and seeing what you can get in the big game sizes. I suspect this reel would hold a fish in the 20-pound class for sure, maybe longer or larger. And I don't see why it wouldn't last quite some time other than the availability of pieces and parts. And like I said, I don't know where I could find drags at this point. The rest of the stuff seems pretty quality and seems like it would be lasting for sure. And overall, I would give this one pretty high marks. I'd be interested in hearing if any of you have fished any of these Kencor reels. Like I said, I haven't seen them here. I don't even know where they were distributed. I'm not even quite sure I could say that I know where the distributor would have been. Okay, we'll just take a quick look at this. The back end, what can I say? Looks like a Penn, right? Blue grease on the bearing, the spool bearing. This has got a little bit of junk on it. If the video was a little bit longer, I would certainly go back and clean all of this. I will after the video is done, but you would clean this up with steel wool as well. You could get some of this surface junk that's been on there a while. You can see how it cleans up with steel wool, but unfortunately I don't have a lot of time here on this video, so I'm going to go ahead and put that back in, and then we'll go button this reel up. A little bit of blue grease onto the shaft, and we need the side plate, trim plate there. And again, there's a little bit of junk on the bottom here. I'll just take this off for now. But this side plate can clean up with steel wool and metal polish. And I'll go back and do that later. I use a turtle wax chrome polish, but any metal cleaner will do. I find that automotive product has a good amount of abrasion without hurting the reel. So that's why I use that one. But whatever works for you would work well. And we see some greening on these posts as well. So we'll go ahead and clean this reel up later. But again, I wanted to share with you that smaller screws go into the reel seat. And again, there's one on the other side that's incorrect. We'll go back and figure that one out too. So here's a trick. If you're having trouble finding the hole with the reel seat, use a pin or some other guide to locate the holes and steady it on the one side so that you can put the screw in on the other side. In this case, I'm just using one of those micro screwdrivers. It seems to work fine, and eventually you'll find the there we go. It's this one's a really short screw, so you have about, I don't know, less than 1/8 of an inch maybe to catch it. I've got small screws below, long screws on top, so I'm just going to find that second small screw while I have this thing aligned. I'm going to go ahead and put that back in. Got the post open. Before I go too much further, I want to make sure I can get this post back in where we took it out. So we'll go put that one back on now. So you've learned a couple of things here. You learned that the reel is very much like a Penn, so don't be too concerned. You learned that you should take pictures of reels that you're not familiar with, because the schematics probably aren't available, and certainly parts are probably not available. So you want to make sure where those things go as you work through these reels. You learned that the technologies in reels don't vary that much. This seems to be a standard blueprint, and in this case this blueprint is very, very similar to Penn. I'm not even sure if Penn may have sold the rights to this somehow to the Japanese manufacturer, but Kencor certainly put together a reel that's very similar in nature to a Penn Senator 3.0 or a Long Beach 65. And you also learned a trick there. If you have a stuck screw, use WD-40. Use a kitchen scrubby pad, an abrasive pad, to hold it so that you don't mar the chrome. Use a channel lock pliers to turn opposite if the screw is stuck, making sure that you soaked it with some WD-40. Okay, we remember this ferrule. We kind of liked that when that came across there. There was a counterbalance, and we had the star drag one on. Again, these parts need to be cleaned up, but again, for the duration of this video here, I'm just going to go ahead and put it back on and then come back later and actually clean the reel up. But I didn't want to miss the opportunity to show you the reel and have it run out of time. So just having trouble catching that first one. So that's another thing you want to look at when you're doing reels, is make sure that you don't force anything along the way, because if you do, you can wind up stripping something. And again, I'm sure there's no way in the world you're going to find a gear sleeve for this. I'm holding the inner of the gear sleeve with a Phillips head screwdriver. That's not going to damage the internal screws for the handle nut. So if you find yourself in a position where you're having trouble grasping that, or the gearing is turning at the same time, go ahead and use something that's rounded so that it doesn't tear into the threads, because again, if you strip the threads, you're going to be in trouble there as well. Alright, last nut on. Use that Penn handle to secure that screw. Then the handle nut is under the line here. So that's how you take apart a reel that you haven't been familiar with. Get a look at the inside, clean it up so that you can put it back into service. And this one can go back into service. We found out that the drag washers were okay. We lubricated them, and we can actually put a line on this one and go take it fishing. So there you go. We've got a Kencor 840 drum reel that is working fine, and it says higher, stronger, longer casts. So there you go. Faster. Higher, stronger, faster. That kind of sounds like the Olympics, right? All right. So I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please like it. If you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel. Again, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching the video.